Daisy worked as a cleaner in one of the tallest glass towers in the city. She wasn't rich or well-known. All she had was a mop, an old cracked phone, and worn-out wired earphones. But every night, when the offices were empty and the building grew quiet, Daisy would dance on the 42nd floor. With the city lights twinkling behind her and the polished marble floor under her feet, cleaning became part of her dance. The mop swayed like it was part of the rhythm, and the windows mirrored her as if she was the star of a secret show. Music was her escape, her comfort, and her way of fighting back against life's struggles. Her rent was always late, bills piled up, and loneliness followed her everywhere. Still, she kept dancing, because when the music played, she felt a kind of freedom that even the wealthiest people in that building could never feel. What she didn't realize was that someone had started watching her. And it wasn't just anyone. It was Caleb Knight, the billionaire CEO of Knight Innovations. And her life was about to change completely. Caleb Knight was a man who lived both high above the city and far above most people in life. From his glass-walled office, he ran one of the largest tech companies in the country. Cold, sharp, and untouchable, he was someone people respected but also feared. He almost never smiled, trusted no one easily, and was known for speaking the truth without sugarcoating it. One late night during a call with investors in Austria, he glanced out of his office window and froze. In the building across the street, he saw a young woman. She wasn't dancing like a professional. She was moving like someone who couldn't stand the quiet anymore. She gripped a mop like it was a microphone, and spun as though the city lights were her cheering crowd. Caleb couldn't look away. The voice on the call became distant background noise as he watched. He'd seen performers in theaters, at high-end galas, and on famous stages, but none like her. Who was she? How could someone so ordinary seem so alive? From that night on, Caleb stayed late at the office just to see her again. He even began using a private room at the top of the tower, not for meetings, but as his own lookout. He set up a telescope like he was stargazing, except his star was across the street. At first, he convinced himself it was just curiosity. But eventually, he admitted to Scott, his longtime assistant, that he wanted to know more. Scott was taken aback. His boss had never shown personal interest in anyone before. "She's just a cleaner," Scott said cautiously. Caleb didn't blink. "She's more than that. She's a mystery." Following Caleb's orders, Scott investigated. He found out her name, Daisy Wilson, 24 years old. She shared an apartment with 2 other women, had no criminal record, worked 3 different jobs, and had lost her mother the year before. No father was listed. Caleb took in every detail. Daisy. Her name sounded like a melody in his mind. He had met models, actresses, socialites, and CEOs, but none of them had whatever she had. There was something in the way she moved, quietly and freely, as if her story was too precious for the world to claim. And he wanted to know her story. The next morning, Daisy got a surprising message from her supervisor. She had been temporarily assigned to clean the executive floors of Knight Innovations, one of the most important contracts her cleaning agency handled. The pay was a little better, but the rules there were famously strict. Daisy felt a knot of nerves in her stomach. What she didn't know was that Caleb had arranged it all. He made sure she would be sent to his floor, set her work hours to match his own, and even changed his personal schedule so they would inevitably meet. When the day came, Daisy wore her usual wine-color uniform, tied her curls neatly back, and kept her gaze down as she stepped onto the hushed floor. The air smelled of expensive cologne and quiet authority. Caleb was already there, though not in his usual sharp suit. Instead, he wore a plain white sweater and jeans. The nameplate on his office door had been removed, so she wouldn't realize who he was right away. When Daisy entered with her mop and cleaning cart, she froze for a moment. The office was breathtaking. Towering glass windows framed the city skyline like a work of art. The white marble floor shone under soft, warm lighting. Shelves displayed awards and plaques with understated pride. In one corner, an elegant black piano sat untouched, as if it held a secret. She let out a quiet breath, steadied herself, and began her work.
"You clean well," a calm voice spoke from behind her.
Startled, she turned quickly. "Oh, I didn't see you there," she said. Caleb was seated on the couch, arms folded, his gaze steady. A faint smile touched his face. "You have a rhythm, even when you mop." Daisy felt her cheeks warm. Unsure whether he was joking or being sincere. Not realizing she was speaking to the CEO himself, she gave a small, polite nod and went back to work, though her hands trembled slightly. Caleb found himself watching her more intently than ever before. This was the first time he truly saw her, not just as the cleaner he'd noticed from afar, or the dancer in the other building, but as a person. Up close, she was stunning, not in a loud or flashy way, but in a quiet, natural beauty that seemed untouched by the world. There was something so pure about her, so unaware of the light she carried, that it made his chest tighten. For the first time in a long while, Caleb felt his heart skip. For someone who didn't even realize she was the most captivating person in the room. That night, he waited, expecting her to dance the way she had before. But she didn't. The next day, when Daisy opened the supply closet, she found a small black box tied with a gold ribbon. Her name was written on a tag. For Daisy. Her breath caught. She glanced around to make sure no one was nearby before opening it. Inside were a pair of sleek wireless earbuds, a portable speaker, and a folded note. For the girl who dances like the world doesn't hurt. Don't stop dancing, keep dancing. Daisy didn't know what to feel. Was it fear, excitement, or confusion? Her hands shook as she turned on the speaker and paired it with her phone. That night, after checking the hallways, she slipped in the earbuds, turned up her music, and let herself move. Her eyes were closed, her body flowing with more feeling than ever before. For the first time in days, she felt alive again. In the shadows, Caleb watched, his pulse quickening. Even without sound, her dance was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, and she had no idea it was for him. Whispers soon began to spread through the office. People exchanged curious looks. Something felt different. Ivy, a junior manager who had long wanted Caleb's attention, began to suspect something. She noticed he stayed later than usual, often lingering in his office after everyone else had left. Finally, she confronted Scott. "Is he seeing someone?" she asked. Scott didn't answer, but his silence told her enough. That evening, Ivy stayed late under the pretense of finishing work, but her real goal was to find out the truth. Hiding in the dim hallway, she followed Caleb's line of sight. Through the glass wall of his office, she saw that he wasn't looking at his computer or any documents. His attention was locked on the cleaner. Daisy was moving gently as she worked, dancing in her own quiet world, and Caleb was smiling in a way Ivy had never seen. Genuine, soft, and focused entirely on her. Ivy's curiosity hardened into something sharper: jealousy. She had been trying for months to make Caleb notice her, yet now his eyes were fixed on a cleaner, as if she was the most important person in the entire building. One night, Daisy moved through the office as she always did, headphones in, eyes closed, her body swaying gently as she cleaned. To her, it wasn't just work. It was a way of making something ordinary feel beautiful. She had no idea anyone was watching, but Ivy was. Hidden in the shadows of another floor, Ivy quietly recorded her with her phone. By morning, the video was everywhere. The title was cruel. "Cleaning girl dances in billionaire's office. Is she trying to seduce him?" It spread online at lightning speed. When Daisy entered the building, the atmosphere had shifted. People stared openly, some smirking, others whispering in corners. Her chest tightened. She tried to walk tall, but every glance felt heavy. Every snicker stung. She fled to the bathroom and cried. Caleb heard about it soon after. His anger was immediate. He called his legal team and ordered the video removed from every site, but the damage was already done. Something innocent had been twisted into a joke, and Daisy was left carrying the shame for simply being herself. Scott had warned him about the gossip, but Caleb didn't care. He had already made up his mind. Daisy had his heart, whether she knew it or not. He noticed the smallest things. The way she laughed softly to herself. The strength in her quiet presence. How she tucked a loose curl behind her ear when nervous. And how she sometimes stopped cleaning just to look at the moon. She didn't realize it, but every small detail drew him closer. That night, Caleb sat alone in his dark office, watching her from across the room as usual. But something was different. Daisy didn't dance. Her movements were slow, mechanical. No music, no rhythm, just work. Caleb kept waiting for her to start again, but she never did. The silence felt heavier than he expected. He didn't just miss her dancing, he missed her. The next morning, Daisy came in early, hoping the whispers had faded. She kept her head down, focusing on her chores. But her routine was interrupted when her supervisor handed her a note. "You've been requested personally," he said. "Executive suite, Mr. Caleb's office." Her stomach sank. "Requested by name?" she asked quietly. "That's what the memo says," he replied with a shrug. Inside the suite, she tried to steady herself. Caleb stood by the window, hands behind his back, gazing at the city. "You stopped dancing," he said without turning. "It didn't feel safe," she admitted softly. "Like someone was watching me." He turned, his eyes calm but intense. "I was. It was me." Her breath caught. "Why?" He stepped toward her, his voice low. "Because I saw someone free, someone alive, and I couldn't look away. I didn't mean to frighten you." Daisy's grip tightened on her cleaning cloth, but she stayed silent. "I left the earbuds." "The note," he continued. "I moved you here, so I could know you, not to control you." "You're the CEO?" she asked. "Yes. And I'm just a cleaner. You're the only person I've met in years who doesn't wear a mask." Her pulse raced. She didn't know whether to leave or stay, but something between them shifted in that moment. News of her being personally requested by Caleb spread quickly. Ivy's jealousy ignited. She stormed into Scott's office. "What is she doing in his suite? Has he lost his mind?" she demanded. Scott's tone stayed even. "That's none of your business, Ivy. Maybe focus on your own work." But Ivy wasn't done. That night, she followed Daisy after work, keeping her distance. She snapped photos as Daisy walked home, not to uncover wrongdoing, but to create a scandal. The next day, Daisy sat alone in the rooftop garden, her legs curled up on a stone bench. She hugged her knees, trying to process everything that had happened. She had never asked for attention, and she certainly never imagined being noticed by someone like Caleb. The cool night breeze played with her curls as she stared up at the stars. She didn't hear him until he quietly sat beside her, leaving space between them. "I'm sorry," he said softly, "for how fast everything has happened." She glanced at him. "Why me? There are women in your world who would give anything to be in my place." "I don't want them," he said simply. "They hide behind masks. You're real." She looked away. "Being real doesn't make this any easier." "I know," he replied, hesitating before reaching for her hands. "But I want to help carry the weight. I want to understand what you're afraid of." Her voice was shaky. "This feels like a dream, but dreams don't survive in my world. When you grow up holding your breath, waiting for the next bad thing, you don't get used to kindness." Caleb's voice softened, almost breaking. "Then let me be the one who teaches you how." By morning, the company was hit with another scandal. Photos of Caleb sitting close to Daisy on the rooftop had spread everywhere. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire CEO and the cleaner. Secret romance." Daisy didn't know yet, but the moment she walked into the building, she could feel the weight of 100 stares. The hallways were hushed, her name whispered like a punchline. In Caleb's office, Scott rushed in, phone in hand. "It's everywhere. The whole company knows." Caleb scanned the headlines, his jaw tightening. "Get legal to issue takedown requests. I'll handle the rest." Meanwhile, Daisy froze in the hallway. Shame pressing down on her. Ivy walked by with a smirk, whispering just loud enough. Guess scrubbing floors wasn't all she was after. Daisy's eyes burned, but she didn't cry. Not yet. She turned and walked straight to the elevator, not knowing where she was going, only that she needed air. Caleb found her outside near the parking lot, sitting on a bench with her head in her hands. He approached slowly. "I'm so sorry," he said quietly. "This wasn't supposed to happen like this." Her face was tight with hurt when she looked up.
"Why me, Caleb? You could have anyone."
He knelt in front of her, not caring who might see. "Because no one's ever made me feel seen until you." Her tears finally came. Not from the gossip, but from the fear that she wouldn't survive the world that came with him. And Caleb, for the first time, didn't know how to protect her. The whispers didn't die down. They got worse. People stared wherever she went, some with pity, most with judgment. Co-workers gossiped. Security guards gave her different looks. Even the janitors she used to laugh with kept their distance. She stopped dancing, stopped listening to music. She avoided the top floors entirely, requesting a transfer to the basement level where no one paid her any attention. Down there, she could have silence. Caleb noticed the change immediately. She was avoiding him. He waited near stairwells, checked security footage, even rode the service elevator. But she stayed hidden. It broke something in him. "Book a press conference," he told Scott one evening. Scott looked startled. "Sir, if the world wants a story, I'll give them the truth. All of it." The next day, the lobby of Night Innovations was packed with media. Reporters expected a big corporate announcement, but Caleb walked to the podium alone. No prepared speech, no scripted lines. "I'm not here to talk about business," he began. "I'm here to talk about a woman. A woman whose only mistake was dancing when she thought no one was watching. A woman who reminded me what it means to feel alive." He paused, his voice steady. "Her name is Daisy, and I won't let her be bullied or shamed because I saw something beautiful in her. You can mock me, but leave her alone." Daisy sat in a small storage room, watching the live stream on her phone with a hand pressed over her mouth. Caleb was out there, in front of the world, standing up for her. The entire company was watching him fight for her dignity. The press conference changed everything. The mocking stopped. Some people even apologized. The cruel whispers shifted to quiet admiration, and the wave of hate began to fade. She was no longer just the cleaner. She was the woman the billionaire had chosen to defend. Ivy's scheme had backfired badly. Within hours, Caleb traced the rooftop photo leak straight to her. "You're done here," he told her, firing her immediately. "You're choosing her over me? Over your company's image?" Ivy spat. "I'm choosing the truth," Caleb replied. "And you crossed the line." Later, Daisy found out. "You fired her for me?" she asked, in disbelief. "For justice, for respect, for you," Caleb said simply. Wanting to lift her spirits, Caleb planned a surprise. He asked her to trust him, gently tied a blindfold over her eyes, and led her into an old building downtown. The floor beneath them creaked. Mirrors along the walls were coated with dust, and the dim lighting gave the place a quiet, nostalgic warmth. When Caleb untied the blindfold, Daisy's eyes widened. She knew this place. This was the very dance studio where she had trained years ago. The place where she had chased her dream of becoming a dancer before life forced her to trade that dream for survival. "How did you know?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "I asked around," Caleb said with a soft smile. "I just wanted to give something back to you." Daisy walked slowly to the center of the room. For a moment, she just stood there, eyes closed, feeling the memories in the air. Then the music began, and she moved, barefoot, unrestrained, pouring out every emotion she had kept locked inside. Caleb didn't move. He simply watched, completely mesmerized. When the music ended, he stepped toward her and said quietly, "I think I'm falling in love with you." Daisy met his gaze, her heart surging with a yes she couldn't say out loud. Her mind was still afraid, but something deep inside her was already leaning toward him. After that night, Caleb realized Daisy didn't need a big house or expensive jewelry. She needed her dream back. So, he started making phone calls. 2 weeks later, he brought her to a newly renovated dance studio in the city. It had wooden floors, big mirrors on the walls, and sunlight pouring in through tall windows. Daisy's eyes widened. "What is this?" she asked. "It's yours," Caleb replied. "I bought it for you. To dance, to teach, to create. No more hiding." She stepped inside, her shoes making soft clicks on the shiny floor. The air felt like freedom, like a fresh start. In the weeks that followed, Caleb watched her come alive in a way he had never seen before. She began creating dance routines, playing music again, and teaching underprivileged children their very first steps. The studio quickly became Daisy's safe place. Every laugh from the kids, every beat of the music, and every quiet evening practicing alone made her believe, for the first time in years, that happiness could be hers too. Caleb visited whenever he could. He never interrupted, just stood at the doorway watching her. One evening, after the children had left and the music faded, Daisy turned and spotted him. "You always sneak in like that?" she asked with a small smile. "I like watching you dance," he said softly. "It's like watching someone breathe magic." Daisy gave a shy laugh, but this time, she didn't look away. Caleb stepped closer, gently brushing a curl from her face. "You look happy," he said. "I think I am," she whispered. They stood quietly for a moment, the kind of silence that felt warm instead of empty. Then he took her hand and pulled her close. For the first time, they danced together. No music, only heartbeats and quiet smiles. In that moment, the rest of the world disappeared, and it was just them, moving slowly like they had been waiting their whole lives for this. Caleb held her hand tenderly and looked into her eyes with a softness she hadn't seen before. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" Daisy asked. "For coming into my life. You've made me a better man. I didn't even know I needed saving until you came along and did it without trying." Daisy's heart swelled. She wasn't used to being seen this way, not just as a cleaner or a dancer, but as someone who truly mattered. Her eyes filled with tears as she smiled. "Thank you," she said. "You gave me a reason to dream again." They stayed there in the middle of the studio, holding each other, finally understanding what it meant to feel at home. Just when Daisy thought she was finally moving forward and leaving her past behind, pain found its way back. It always did, especially when life began to feel safe. One rainy afternoon, as she sat alone in her dance studio, she heard someone call, "Daisy." She turned and froze. It was her father. Her hand gripped the railing tighter. "What are you doing here?" she asked. He looked older and more tired, but the same cold look was in his eyes. "I saw your face online with that billionaire CEO. Thought maybe it was time we talked again. Family is family, right?" Her chest tightened. The last time she had seen him, he had left her and her mother with nothing but overdue bills and an eviction notice. "You're not family," she said softly. His face hardened. "Come on, I raised you." "You raised your fists," she shot back. "And you walked away when we needed you most. You left us. You left Mom to die." His voice sharpened. "So now you think you're better than me because you're with a billionaire?" Before the fight could get worse, Caleb appeared. "If you ever come near her again," he warned, "you'll answer to the police." Her father muttered a curse and left. Daisy sank into Caleb's arms. He didn't speak. He just held her. And in that quiet, she felt safe. A few weeks later, on a clear Saturday evening, Caleb told Daisy to get dressed. Nothing too fancy, just something that made her feel beautiful. She didn't ask why. She trusted him. He drove her through the city, soft music playing, his fingers gently intertwined with hers. When they stopped, she looked up and gasped. It was the 42nd floor of the glass office building where everything had started. The place she used to dance while mopping, never knowing someone had been watching and falling in love. When the elevator doors opened, she saw candlelight and heard music. The marble floors shone, and the windows glowed with the city lights. In the middle of the room was a small table for two, decorated with white daisies and her favorite dessert. She turned to Caleb, eyes wide. "You did all this?" He smiled. "I just brought us back to the place I first saw you, where it all began." They ate, they laughed, and then the music slowed. Caleb stood and held out his hand. "Dance with me, barefoot, just like that night in the studio." She took his hand, and they moved gently across the marble floor. Then Caleb stopped, reached into his pocket, knelt down on one knee, and opened a small velvet box. "Daisy," he said, his voice warm. "From the moment I first saw you dance, I knew you were different. You never tried to be noticed, but you changed everything. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Caleb." As they kissed under the glow of the city, it felt like everything finally made sense. Their wedding was small, but filled with love. No media, only close friends, a few family members, and people who had been part of their journey. It was held in a quiet garden, surrounded by flowers and soft music. Daisy wore a simple white dress that flowed in the breeze. Caleb wore a classic brown suit, his eyes fixed on her. As they stood hand in hand, the sky opened and light rain began to fall. But no one moved. No one ran. They smiled through the drops, as if the rain was a blessing. When they kissed, wet and laughing, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. The world kept spinning, but for them, time seemed to stop. Months later, Daisy's dance studio grew beyond anything she had dreamed. She partnered with local charities to give free dance therapy classes to children in shelters, turning her space into a place for healing, joy, and second chances. What started as a dream became a movement, and for the first time in her life, Daisy felt full of purpose, of peace, and of love. One quiet morning, Daisy asked Caleb to sit with her, her smile carrying a secret she could barely contain. In her hands rested a small, carefully wrapped box. "Open it," she murmured. Caleb loosened the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside lay a tiny pair of baby shoes. His eyes widened as he looked from them to her. "Are you serious?" he breathed. Daisy nodded, tears shimmering. Without speaking, he drew her into his arms, holding her tightly as laughter and tears mingled between them. "A child brought up with love and music," he whispered. This is the start of everything I never knew my heart longed for." Years later, Caleb found himself in the building where it had all started. The 42nd floor still held its tall windows and the same sweeping view of the city. He stood there, quietly holding his little boy's hand as they gazed at the skyline together. "Daddy?" he asked with innocent curiosity. "Is this where you first saw Mommy dancing?" He smiled softly. "Yes, right there." He tilted his head. "And you loved her from all the way over here?" "From here," he said gently. "And even more now." That evening, back home, Daisy danced once more barefoot in the backyard, spinning gracefully as their son clapped and laughed. Caleb sat on the porch, one hand resting over his heart, watching the two souls who had transformed his life.
Sometimes, fairy tales don't begin in castles. They begin with a mop, a song, and the courage to keep dancing, even when the world is watching. Daisy's story reminds us that love can be found in the most unexpected places, and that even the smallest light can shine bright enough to change a life forever. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unforgettable tales, because your next favorite story is just around the corner.